I want to ask, as we begin, how many active pastors do we have here? 3, 5, 6.
Semi-active?
You're active.
Semi-active,
You're active
7.
enough, Susan.
You know,
Retired.
okay, 8. There are about 8 of us. 8 in Phil and I. About 10 of us, I guess, in the room. And so I'm going to allow myself to be transparent, because I hate just saying stuff for the purpose of saying. I'm in recovery from overwork. Not only do I know that, I'm really trying to harness the energy to make the change. But as most of us in this room know, including my very active lay pastors and our ministers, there's very little time, or so we think, or so we feel, not to work. There's something about the call to ministry that makes you as codependent as you're ever going to be in life. That's my truth. So I'm going to share a couple of stories with you, and then I want us to really think about some things that are important in our lives and how we want to restructure them, because that's how you get to self-care. Because if you're not taking care of yourself now, you certainly won't take care of yourself when you leave this room, unless you make an absolute intentional desire to reconstruct what you're doing in a way that's healthy for you. And those of us who are refugees know of a few pastors who have dropped dead in the pulpit while preaching.
Yes.
And I don't want that to be our legacy. And that's really important. Recognize that you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself. And we just don't find that time. I bet you if I asked you to open your calendars for the month of March, and the day is the second day of March, and say, take 2 days off together, consecutive days, that you couldn't do it. I guarantee you.
That's very true.
So,
Or take 2 days off without maintaining being plugged in.
no, don't get ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because when I started this process many years ago, I thought if I wasn't doing something every day, I wasn't doing what God called me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I did. Yeah. And now that we are electronically connected to everything in our lives, we have very little time for even the things we did before. And we were overwhelmed before we began. So my question to you as we start this is, how can we love our neighbors if we don't love ourselves?
Well, come on.
Recent studies show that religious professionals, particularly Protestant clergy, have the highest degree of work-related stress. Another study says Lutheran clergy and lay leaders, and I would extend this to most denominations, have self-reported problems with depression, relationships with family and friends, with finances, particularly as things close all around us and our congregations shrink and we're trying to figure out how just to get through from one week to the next. And personal devotional time. I don't know, I said I'm going to be transparent today. My prayer time is at 4:30 in the morning when I wake up to go to the bathroom. And I come back and I get in bed and I can't quite go back to sleep. And it's not the kind of devotional understanding that I began this process with. My prayer time is just going down a list of names of folks that I know need prayer, and those who I feel in my spirit. And I fall off to sleep doing that. That's not the relationship I've always had with the Creator. So I'm asking you, as I'm telling you these things, to think about yourself in these positions. Where are you in this process? Do we sound similar? Are you finding yourself feeling like, oh, she doesn't do anything? Like, she needs to catch up with where I'm at. How can we learn to love ourselves? How can we? While we're caring for everyone else. It's not just a hot topic for clergy. Our lay leaders are in the same condition. Because if you have a dedicated lay leadership, like the folks we have around here in Refuge, they were here yesterday, coming from work in the pouring rain, and they were here this morning at 7 o'clock when I got there. And they'll be here until we've cleaned up and closed up, because we have service at 11. And they'll be in the door tomorrow morning at 10. And they'll stay until everybody leaves, and they'll close up. And some of them will be back on Monday for a different program. Somebody else will be back on Wednesday for prayer. And it goes on. So, as pastors, we're not immune, but we also pass it off. It's like we spread it out.
Mm-hmm.
And the busier we get, the busier they get. And most of us are unpaid volunteers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I began having this reality check maybe 10 years ago. Maybe a little longer. And I said to my pastor mentor at the time, and some of you may have met her, Dr. Tony Dunbar, as I'm calling her for the 4th time because Pastor Terry and I had a crisis and we had to figure out how to get past stage 1 of it. And I said, I'm tired. And she said, well, what's going on? So I started telling her. And then she started talking about how she was not overwhelmed, but, running in place, so to speak. And it just became my reality. I started, and she said, you need to think about what you're doing. I wrote this morning about 3:30 because it came back to me so clearly. I said, how can I tell the people to do what I wouldn't do? I was feeling overwhelmed with family concerns. I was in school. I was working on my master's, and I was working on my certificate of theological ministry. I was an active member of our ministers board, and often being called upon by my senior pastors at the time to do things that I just felt like, what? Why are we doing this? What?
Now, don't start, because there's a couple of people who were in your boat with me.
Yes, that's the problem. It almost capsized. Thank God for learning how to walk on water. Just don't look down.
Learn that trick.
Don't look down.
Yeah, seriously, don't look down.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, just hold on to me. I'll get you through it.
But the one thing that I realized I missed was something very simple. I missed time with my family. Okay? My wife, who's also a minister at Refuge, was going, all right, can we go to dinner? Yeah, on our way home from church. Okay? And we lived in Sacramento at the time. So we did 180 miles round trip on a Sunday. Okay? And we weren't the only ones. There were about 6 or 7 people from Refuge doing the same thing. So.
And you still got here before me.
Well,
Okay.
now we don't have to tell it all.
We
Phil.
don't want to indicate why.
We don't have to tell it all.
But
Phil.
among all of that, I was working with my middle school son, who was in every possible situation you could think of, trying to maintain my marriage, trying to go to school, okay? And there was no time left for me.
And working a full-time job, don't forget that.
Oh, yeah, well, of course you were working a full-time job. Well, what else would you do? You didn't have any time on your hands. But I realized, as I listened to Pastor Tony that day, I knew what I was missing most. I was missing snuggling down in my sofa with a book, some jazz, a nice glass of wine on a rainy day. And I felt really separated from God. Because for all that I was doing, I didn't have time to commune. Now, I'm not going to ask you to hold up your hands, but I want you to think about what is your current communication process with your Creator? And if it's not spending real time, then you are in need of self-care. You know, I thought I was being efficient. I had a brand new cell phone. I had real portable equipment. I had an iPad, and guess what? That encumbered me more than when I didn't have it. People would find me in the bathroom, and they, would call like 2 or 3 times, one right behind the other. I'm thinking, did somebody pass? Are you hospitalized?
Right.
Or maybe I need to respond right away. And I think that what I didn't realize was I wasn't doing them any service. Really. I wasn't 100% available. So they were getting the leftovers of me. Those of us who think that we are really connected to service need to think about that. Where are your lines of demarcation? Where is it that you get to say, not today. Not this minute. Just in time. What does that leave for your family? How connected are you to your family? You have small children? Do they see you as you pass through? You're kissing them and putting them to bed? And you're on the phone with the parishioner who's called? I want to say to you that I had this screaming thought. Stop! If you haven't had that moment, it's time to look for it. It's time to look for it. Is there anybody in this room that I'm relating to?
Oh, yeah.
I want you at this very moment, not when we're through, I want you at this very moment to think about what can you do to slow down the track. And then I want you to write it down. I want you to write it down because it's a covenant to yourself to begin to look at your life differently. Seriously. I'll wait a couple seconds before you do it. I need you to really think about that and write it down.
I do.
And since most of the hands in the room went up when I asked, then you should have something to write down.
Green's the color of milk. It's my great grandmother's favorite pen. She was my reference.
Yeah.
I love green.
Chance to push up around your exercise. Actually leave out.
Yes, ma'am.
Covenant to myself.
Okay. What can you tell yourself you can stop doing now? Or at least reduce the amount of time that you do it. And carve out time for yourself in that moment. And I really want you, when you have a chance, to go back and revisit that. You know, they used to tell us, put a sticker on your mirror in the bathroom. A reminder, a constant reminder of what you need to do for yourself. Because I hope the next time we all meet, I see all of your faces. And I don't get any of the stories that I get sometimes long distance. Because you're important to me. You really are. And I want you to extend to your lay leaders and those around you the same question that I just asked you. How are you feeling? When I ask that, people go, I'm fine. Less than highly favored. No. When I ask, now that my congregation knows that when I say to you, Pastor Maria, how are you today? And she goes, oh, I'm really well. Pastor Maria, how are you today? I really want to know. There's an intentionality to that question. Because if we're all connected and you're not okay, then the bridge is broken. And there's no way to repair it because we haven't been honest with each other. One of the first things I told my ministers when I was asked to be over the ministers board was, get yourself a therapist. And they laughed at me, you know, they laughed at me. And I would kind of periodically say, get yourself a good therapist and hold on to it. Well, I've had my therapist over 15 years. She knows my crazies. She knows my congregation. And she's in Sacramento and I'm here. But it's a safe place to put down some of the things we carry. And know it's not going to be brought back. It's not going to do harm to anyone. And you can release it. But if you don't take care of yourself in a very real way, you carry that baggage through every situation, and you pick up more and more. So you go from a backpack to a small overnight bag to a weekender to a week.
Matching.
Now you have matching sets. To a Pullman.
Right.
Then you go from the Pullman to
The trunk.
the trunk. And it's a small trunk car. Okay? And you continue to do that.
Fanny pack.
When you start out with hands free and you wind up carrying the world, you have failed to take care of yourself. How many of you have renewal leave? One person in a room of what? No, 3 people in the room of,
And I'm taking it on the 13th
all right.
of this month.
Good.
Yes!
Okay, how many of us are in there? I'd say about 20. 3 people out of 20 have renewal leave.
What is that?
An
like
opportunity
study.
to go away, an opportunity to go away from your congregation.
You know, your study leave, you can go and not study.
Yeah. Sorry to
You know
shock
this is
you,
being
but that's
filmed,
real. Okay? I have now done 5 years at my current employment. I'm at Pacific School of Religion. I have renewal leave, and they require that you take it.
Yeah.
They don't ask you, would you like to go away for a little while? They say, bye-bye, see you. See you in 30 days. Go do something. Okay? But our churches don't do that.
Well, or some do, they call it study leave, and pastors study instead of doing renewal.
But
And I'm thinking
some
we
of-
should all change it to renewal leave.
Yeah, because if you think about it, most of our congregations can't afford to pay us for a month off. or 3 months off, which should be real, or 6 months when you're really gonna do a sabbatical,
Some folks don't get paid enough.
okay? Some are volunteer pastors. Hello?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes my idea is you're supposed to be there 24/7.
Well, we gotta
You're
talk
not
about
supposed to
that. And I'm gonna get ready to wrap up so Phil can talk to you guys about this. But I wanna be clear that when your body and your spirit and your intellect don't line up, you may need to take an inventory. What does your congregation expect from their pastor? The conversation I had that day with my mentor, Dr. Dunbar, inspired her to do a checklist. And I'm going to hand this out to you. And it's called Perfect Pastor.
That would be most of you in this room.
I'm very clear that it is, okay? I'm very clear that it is. What does your congregation expect from you? That you be well
This is your
groomed,
first final exam.
that you always have your phone on and available for them, okay? That if somebody's in the hospital, you're the first one there and the last one to leave, okay? If they're having a crisis with their spouse, that you're willing, open, available, and listening, actively listening, which means you're also actively packing that away. There's more coming around. You're actively packing that away with, in your suitcase. So when they call you back and start in the middle of the conversation, like you spoke to them yesterday,
You have no idea who it is.
and you have no idea who it is, means that there's an expectation of you that's unrealistic. And if you go down this list, I'm not gonna take the time to do that now, but if you go down this list, the list of tasks that you have in a week, I guarantee you could probably add more, okay? What your attributes have to be, you'll start to think about, am I overwhelmed? I really want you to think about these things seriously. I'm not just doing an exercise in conversation. When's the last time you had a doctor's appointment and kept it? Really? And kept it? Because you got a phone call and you decided, well, that's more important than me taking this doctor's appointment, I'll reschedule it. And it gets pushed farther and farther off the table. I want you to think about some of these things, and I'll come back after Phil, and we're gonna do an exercise that I hope you'll latch on to and do every day. At least take a 5-minute vacation, so that you can breathe, because your breathing is important to me. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Pastor.
You got my seat ready for me. He's always been my leader.
They've thrown me under the bus so much today.
Come on, Pastor Phil.
You know,
Sing,
It's all
Phil.
perception, Pastor. It's all perception.
Thank you.
but it's all perception.
Just an indication of how much they love you.
Sing,
You
Phil.
know, I have enemies that treat me better. You know, well, originally we started off with saying that this is a self-care workshop, but I got inspired by Sarah and Amy, and I decided to change my presentation to Love Yourself Back, just by hearing their words and what they had to say about it. So, love yourself back. So before we even get started, do this to yourself. Because you probably don't do that enough.
No.
You probably don't pat yourself on the back for all the work, the dedication and commitment that you, I'm sure everyone in this room has and done. And you don't get thanked for it, do you? We don't do it for thanks, but it helps a little bit, doesn't it? And it makes you feel a little bit better. Just a little bit better. But you know, throughout my own life experience and my personal evolution, I've really come to believe that one of the most important aspects of pastoral practice is a dedication to self-care. I mean, it's so important that we do take some time for ourselves to love ourselves back. And it's so hard because of all of the stuff that we have to get done, all of the things that we feel need to happen, like right now. And we don't stop, and we don't stop. It's like Pastor Janice said, you just stop. We don't do that because we're not taught how to do that. We're taught to keep it moving. We're taught to keep it going. We got to get this. We got to do this. This life is too short. You got. Well, you don't. You don't. I'm here to tell you today, you don't. You don't. It's time to love yourself back. I mean, this meeting this morning has changed my whole speech that I had planned to give you. And, you know, but it's important that you love yourself back. As we step out into our path of the healer, we make ourselves accessible to others for the support and companionship that we believe that we're called to do. And we are. We're called to do those things, to help the people, to serve the people, to serve our families, to serve our jobs, to serve. And we don't take time to serve ourselves, to love ourselves back. And this is why sessions like this is important, that we stop. We have to stop. And it's an important way to learn how to unwind or to clear our emotions and our energies, because what we're doing is holding a space for the people that we serve. Every time, I'm the pastor of counseling here at the church. I'm also an educator outside of the church. I teach for Oakland Unified, and I don't know if you've been keeping up with the stress the past few weeks have brought us with the strike and all, you know, and it's been stressful. And you know, the people that I work for, Oakland Unified, they don't know my other life, which is pastoring. And so, where do you take all of this? You know, we take on so much, and we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders pretty much all the time. And we don't know how to release it and let go. And like Pastor Janice said about me earlier, I know how to laugh. And I do know how to make other people laugh. That has helped me along the way, comedy. You know?
Amen.
Sometimes I have to look at a situation and just smile and say, you know what? This is funny. This is hilarious, God. I know you got jokes.
Yes.
You got some serious jokes. You put me in this situation. There's got to be a way out of it.
Right.
So self-care. So you got to, you know, when you're carrying the weight of the world, when you're carrying the burdens of the people, is that you have to find a way to release it. And my way of releasing it is through exercise. My way of releasing it is through comedy, laughing. I have a numerous amount of hobbies that I do to release it. And I do take my sabbaticals. It's important because I know that what I have to face. And sometimes I don't know what I have to face. And I'm going to share a quick story with you. And Pastor Terry can, and Pastor Maria can attest to this because they're going through it now. I lost my mother not that long ago, and I still had to carry on the duties of the church and the duties of work and still try to find some time for Phil. And it's not easy. It is so not easy. But I realized through that process how important it was. And that process for me at the time, because I'm from North Carolina, I would sit on my mother's porch and just rock, you know, almost like just rock. And then talk to the Lord. Then talk to myself a little bit. Then talk to the Lord again. And then I felt better. And you know, my process is different from your process. Each of us have our own process that we use to maintain whatever craziness is going on in our life. But for me, it was exercise. I take walks a lot. I do a lot of reading. They'll tell you when they go to my house, I have books from this. You got to find an outlet. I also do art. I also sew. I have so many hobbies that take me away from the other realities that are happening in my life. And I encourage anyone and everyone, find that kind of hobby or outlet that's a safe outlet. I don't encourage alcohol, I don't encourage drugs, but I encourage other activities to take yourself away. When I'm doing one of those things that I mentioned, I'm no longer in that space of trouble and tribulation and trials and any of that. And when I come back to earth, when I come back down, I'm ready to serve. I'm in a different space. I'm in a different capacity. I'm capable now. I'm stronger now, and I can do it. And I'll get there and do the work. So you got to think about what's your special spot. Where do you go? For me, I go to the ocean or the desert, depending on how severe the situation is. My sabbatical that I'm going to be taking soon, I'm going to the ocean. And I'm going to be at the ocean for 1 month. And I'm going to maybe write, maybe not. It depends on what I'm inspired to do. You have to look for those special places, and you have to go there. You have to turn your phone off. Where I'm going, my phone won't work anyway. It won't work anyway. Sometimes you have to do that. If you can't cut your phone off, go somewhere where it won't work. Go up into the mountains. You got to shut it all down. And what's so sad about us as pastors is our denominations. I'm from Church of God in Christ. That was where I originally, before I became UCC. They're made to, they tend to try to make you feel guilty about wanting to take care of yourself. You know, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus went to parties.
Right.
And on the mountain to pray.
Jesus
Right.
went away
Where there's no cell
from the
phone.
people.
Right.
And I don't
Holy
think
days.
that lessened his salvation in any. He went away, and we got this thing backwards. Yeah, he went away. When Lazarus died, he was away. But he got back. But you know, he went down and took a nap. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. He broke away from the people. And that's something that we all have to learn to do. We have to break away and not feel guilty about it. One of the analogies that I love to use, and Pastor Janice uses it often, is that, you know, when you're on a flight and the stewardess will tell you to remind you to first put your own mask on and then turn to others to help them put their mask on. Because if you're not breathing, in theory, you will not be able to help anyone else breathe.
Right.
The reality is that you've got to exhale. So right now, take a deep breath.
There you go.
Hold it and release it. How often do you guys have a chance to do that? Do you ever stop to exhale? You have to learn to do that. You have something as simple as taking a breath can save your life and save someone else's life. If you don't learn to breathe and inhale and exhale, how in the ham sandwich are you going to help someone else breathe? If you're stifled and stuffed up and stressed out, and how are you going to help someone get away from all of that? You've got to learn to breathe. Learn to inhale. If you're not an exerciser or a walker, learn to breathe. Learn to exhale. Learn to release it. It's important. And as Pastor Janice has shared, if you can't do it by yourself, get a therapist. There's no shame in, even though you're a leader, to not having a therapist. You can have a therapist. It's okay. You're not crazy. Get a therapist. Well, yeah, there's that. There's always two in the room.
Hey, just acknowledge who you are and move on.
And, you know,
That's the first step to getting
that's
help,
it.
right?
It's almost like a 12-step program. First, acknowledge that you do have an issue. And then realize that that issue that you have is not helping you or anybody that you serve. And if you want to be a true servant, a real servant, breathe, exhale, release it. And if you know you need to breathe and exhale, definitely step away from the people you serve. Because again, you'll do more harm than good.
Yes.
And we're set here to do good. We're set here to do the work. And you can't be good or do good if you're in that place, that dark place. Release it and learn to release it. And if you don't have the time, then breathe.
Mhm.
Breathe. Shut the door and take a deep breath. If you're in a meeting, there have been many meetings that we've been in together, and we'll tap each other. It's time for you to go take a breath. Because what you just said right then to those people, not good. You go take a breath, close the door, go.
And one of us will pick up where you left off.
That's it, and that's how we do it. So even if you have to get a partner to help give you the oxygen mask, because if you're not strong enough to put it on yourself, find somebody to help you. I'm blessed to have several partners in this church that help me put my mask on when I couldn't do it for myself. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. My final presentation to you is, there's so many techniques that we could use. So many. And she's going to illustrate one of them. My technique is the breathing thing. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just let it go. Let it go. That problem that's there in front of you is going to be there when you come back. But when you come back, you'll have a different perspective. You'll have a better perspective. You'll be able to use the right voice and the right tone. Because if you're not breathing, you're going to yell at that person, you're going to scream, or you're going to give some bad advice. As a pastor's counselor, I'm very careful about the advice that I give. And I have to make sure that I'm in the space to give that advice. And when you're dealing with young people like I deal with, I have 4th and 5th graders who are being diagnosed as ADD and other things. What the clinicians aren't realizing is that these are kids who probably have traumatic stress disorder. They're dealing with situations that I never had to do. I was a country boy on a farm. I didn't have to deal with drug addicts or prostitutes or gang banging. I dealt with cows, chickens, rabbits, hogs. That was my reality. And I'm transparent with my students and the clients that come through here. No, I've never been through what you've been through.
Right.
I've never been through that. And sometimes if you're honest like that, it really makes a difference. Your approach is different. They'll approach you differently. But these are students who are dealing with things that I've never had to deal with in life. So now where do I find the answer to their problem? Where do I find the answer, and how do I respond as a teacher and as a counselor to something that I've never experienced? Well, the Bible says study and show yourself approved. I studied the situation, but you have to be honest. Don't go in there acting like you have all the answers. Because I'm real clear. I don't have them. I'm learning every day. About every time you think you've mastered something, there's another disorder. There's another traumatic experience. There's another, and layers and layers. But you have to be honest and transparent with the people and yourself. And it will move a lot of things forward for you. It'll move you forward mentally, spiritually. Everybody's not going to be spiritually grounded. There are a lot of people who you serve don't care about being spiritually grounded. Well, how do you approach that? How are you going to help them? Study and show yourself approved. Study, and the answers will come. That's all I have for you right now.
Can I share one quick thing?
Sure.
I was a pastor of a church for 20 years in San Francisco, and just recently our church closed. In 20 years, I took a 3-month sabbatical when my mother passed away. My mother passed away, and then 6 months later, my sister passed away. I took a 3 months, what was supposed to be a sabbatical, never turned out to be a sabbatical, to deal with my grief. For the first time in 20 years, since the church closed down, I have had a rest. So I encourage y'all, and I'm starting now to jump back in slowly. I encourage you all, especially those of you who are pastors, leaders in your churches, don't wait. Take your rest. You need your rest. God would have you rest. Take your rest. There are other people who can come in and do what you need done.
Right.
Take your rest.
And see, I know that lesson because I've trained people to take over. But you know what? You don't have to wait to heaven to get your rest. Take your rest.
Take your rest.
Any questions before we move to Pastor Janice again? No? Yes.
It's maybe both an observation and a question. I think that there's pride for clergy in both bragging and complaining about overwork. And also it's how pastors prove that they're getting something done is that they spend so many hours at it. And that's the culture, and it's pretty hard to do something different, I think.
And that's the part we have to break away from. We have to break away from the theological shame that people tend to put on pastors and people who, especially if they know that you're in the church, they put you on this orange crate that you're not human.
Yeah, but it's your colleagues also.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
I really decided I am
Absolutely.
never going to brag or complain anymore
No.
about how busy I am, because I think it's
Even in
sickening.
your bragging and complaining, it's not really going to help.
Yeah.
They're not going to listen. But you can't be what they want you to be at all times, and you have to live with that fact. You have to understand, you are a human being first. You were human before these titles were attached to you.
Yeah.
You make human mistakes.
Well.
You fall short. All is falling short. You know, you have to understand that and accept it. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I think I'm perfect sometimes, but I wish I could say that and really mean it, but no, that's not how this is. Yeah.
I wanted to add, sometimes it's not the congregation. I know for me, it's often being this, trying to be superhero.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
I am Wonder Woman after all.
I know that. I see your cake and raise you up.
And when you grow up, the expectations that I'm the called one, I can make a difference, even when it's an activism or something, you know,
Right.
I go here and my role is to save and to free and to liberate, and then get myself to, well, you know, not see that God's got to work through this and that I got to let go of the powers. But one of the things you said about in my church, the pattern in my church over its history was when the minister took a vacation, that's when the members met to get rid of them.
Wow.
So my first vacation that I took, and my sister called me, "You have to get back here because they're starting." I'm just like, I just been there a year, you know. So the church needed education about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my agency has 5 different programs, 5 different programs that we provide services to mostly homeless people who are mental health consumers. Of our 5 program and then we have a very generous paid time off program. Depending on how long you've been there, you can get up to 4 weeks of paid vacation. You earn a day of sick time every month. Not that we want people to get sick, but it's there if you need it.
That's good.
But of our 5 managers, all but 1 are at their maximum earned income, earned paid time off for vacation, and they won't take it. It's just not even a day. It's just, I'm just afraid that they're all just kind of go poof one of these days.
Do you have those conversations with them about
Oh,
how
yeah.
important it is and,
Oh, yeah.
and not listening? Huh?
Make it mandatory.
Yeah.
That's
You
what
could think about
that's
making
what
it
you have to
mandatory.
do,
We
yeah.
could. Even a week.
Well, they encourage educators. We have 2 months out
Yeah.
of the whole summer off, and I take every bit of it.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Every bit of it. Yeah.
I'm a dad.
Yes. And then you.
So, for me, I'm a fairly new pastor and actually founded my church, so it's a very new plant. And one of the things that being a PK, Kojic baby,
Yes.
coming up in the church and watching all of the pastors that I had been associated with, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, all those go through this idea of needing to be the end-all, you know, because we can do church and all parts of the service by ourselves. So I can open up with prayer, I can read the scripture, I can do praise and worship, I can take an offering, I can do meditation, I can play instrument, I can preach, I can do it all.
Yeah, Wonder Woman and Superman.
What I promised myself when I agreed with God to start and plant a church was I was not going to do it all.
Amen.
Because saying I can't is really unrealistic, because you can do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
Saying I'm not going to makes a difference, because now I give myself room to allow, which hasn't happened yet, praying for more people to come in to have extra pastoral staff so that I can take that sabbatical, bringing people in so that I can preach for me, so that I can go do something else, giving myself permission to give other people some responsibilities in leadership, so that I'm not doing this all day long, working a full-time job, raising a child, being a husband, all these other things that the church forgets about, because all they see is you as this wonderful, great pastor, but they forget you're also a wonderful case manager to everybody in the county that you help give food stamps and cash aid to, and you're this wonderful parent to this kid you got to see about, and you're a wonderful husband. They forget about all of that. So my goal in taking this workshop is to really understand how to creatively carve out time when you don't have the potential of having that sabbatical or that day off, because you are at that moment the only one that can feed the people on a Sunday morning. So that's my dilemma.
I will definitely talk to you after service, because I do have a plan for you.
You got a plan for me too, Phil? I have the same problem.
I'll talk to you too.
You can't be a part of the conversation.
Because we've been in that place, so I can help you with that.
Coming from a different lens, I appreciate being able to hear some of this as a layperson who's walked a path of, in a place of intersectionality, inclusion. I do disability, homelessness, mental health. And it's nice to be here today and be reminded to take a breath.
Right.
What I wrote down was allow. Because yesterday, I was with a good friend of mine at Berkeley, and just the day before, they did an RVs removing the vans new ordinance.
Yeah.
And I went down to talk to some people by myself, because I felt very strongly that we should hear a voice, and that was brought up in the council meeting. Nobody came, nobody asked them. They are the solution. Why did we deny them the opportunity to participate in our community, and why won't we welcome them? Because the basic need, they're holding on to, and now they may possibly get ticketed.
Yeah.
And I was with my friend yesterday talking about a new thing, and I didn't realize till it was just now. I didn't take a breath after that day, because I was hit so strongly with an ordinance being passed. Mind you, I was listening to all sides, public comments and all this. The point of fact is, why cannot we address basic need? And why can't we take the stigma away?
Right.
Their voices were there, but not enough did we ask them to participate. The council acknowledged that. And I'm like sitting there in the face of our solution, and we're doing something to penalize. So I was with my friend on a different topic. I literally broke down about everything nobody sees me on. The dog is even, no, Helen, oh my God, it's disability, I can't take it. She was telling me to breathe, but I wouldn't listen.
Just breathe.
And I was like, oh my goodness gracious, it's not till now. It's like part of my allow is calling her up and saying, thank you for in the face of my breakdown, because I just can't believe that we as humans create this issue.
Right, we do.
It's solvable.
Yeah.
But it's too idealistic to be able to say, I believe we can solve this. Because it's those people that are impacting all these people that wanna. They want it too. Why are we leaving them out? So I'm going to call her as my sabbatical and say, thank you for reminding me to take a breath. I realize I need to take a breath. When I'm done, can we talk about maybe some way that I I could somewhat figure out some way to say, I think I'm on edge, because I didn't realize that I would do that, but I'm still upset
Yeah.
that our solutions are penalty.
But you know what, as a leader and as a pastor, you could have the solution right here in front of you. But that doesn't mean that people are going to hear you, especially if you're approaching it in the wrong voice. If you're approaching it in an angry voice. Sometimes anger does work, but I'd say 89 to 90% of the time, you'll hear a soft voice, a soft, still voice.
Yeah.
You know.
I
A
was
lot of
trying to
the
be
place,
positive.
especially for this church, and I can speak for this church, we didn't get to this place hosting something like this with a loud voice.
No.
We just did the work in a quiet, still, soft voice, and now all of a sudden everybody else is blowing it up for us, letting them know that we're here, we're here, we're here. But it didn't start off loud, you know? And I better hurry up. And
No,
you go ahead. No,
And
this
then
is
Mark,
your
and then,
time.
and then we're
This
gonna
is your
spend
time.
some time
This is your time.
decompressing before we walk out.
Just
of
real
here.
fast, I want to say thank you.
Oh, you are.
And I wanted to just let everybody know that this personally applies to me now. I have a therapist that I haven't seen in 3 years, and I went back, and it took me going up in a meeting at my church. Thank God it was all people of color. So I just want to say workshops like this, ongoing, I think is very helpful. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
And we at Refuge are really working on creating a safe space for these type of workshops for leaders and pastors and lay people who are under some stressful situations and don't know what to do with it, or don't have the finances to get the counseling that they need.
Just in this group today, there's people that spoke that wouldn't have because they heard somebody else say something.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
That's good.
No, you're fine.
You made me think of something that's occurred to me about the attitudes that we didn't get to this place at this level here. Many of us are working in communities that have been marginalized and excluded and have had to face the rage and anger, either racism or homophobia and all. It used to get me when I was pastoring that, why are these people being so doggone evil? You know,
We use the word dad.
And then one of my deacons said to me, do you know what they deal with every day of their lives? At work and here, and they're bringing, and yeah, it's the cross. In teaching sociology, there's a couple of queer undergrad students who come with that righteous indignation, anger, it's just man, I had to remember that it's not me. These two young women, two lesbian women who were just mad. I just had to read their papers and I found out what has happened to them over time, and then college and the rejection, and then I guess it was like I was reading James Baldwin, who said, this stuff nobody made this up. We've dealt with a whole lot of stuff, and the anger is there. So I guess I would say like with that, I think it's really important on the self-care that I've had to learn not to take on. To see that I have to be a model to help direct the anger. I understand the anger. I live with the anger, and not be way up here, but help communities, and not trying to be the savior for them, but kind of keep my own, taking care of myself in order so I don't feel like I'm being a victim or they're coming attacking me. Going like, no, it's not about you. It's about their suffering.
That's part of the practice that I'm doing in the school, in the elementary school that I teach in, letting my colleagues know these kids aren't mad at you. You don't know what they've been through just to get to this classroom. They've either stepped over a dead body, they've either ducked from a drive-by. You don't know. And so don't take it personal. Just go in with a soft voice. Go in and breathe. And then hear them, listen. Have bigger ears and a bigger mouth. That big mouth thing don't always work. But if you have some big ears and you can hear it, be Dumbo.
Thank you, Pastor Bill.
Thank you.
That's a vision for me.
We're not going.
Ladies,
I'll just tell my wife, it's okay, I'm Dumbo right now. Thank you. Thank all of you. because this is not easy work. And we don't collectively do easy work. If we were called to do easy work, we'd be laying out on the hammock with him by the water.
Right.
Let me under the bus again.
Not even invited.
Well, I want us to do one thing before we close. And it's, Phil and I didn't get a chance to coordinate. We've been trying to get together to
Because of our
coordinate.
crazy schedules.
But it goes to the fact, as I listen to him, it goes to the fact that we really do live this reality. And we share our lived experience. And I think that's the critical part of what we need to do. In this room, outside of this room, where we go. I used to work for the police department. And the one thing you didn't do was you didn't take your lived experience of the day home with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of guys I know ate their guns. They were divorced. They were angry all of the time. They were difficult people to work with or for. And they spent a lot of time at the bar. If we worked at 4 to 12, they got off at 12. They were there until the bar closed at 3. I worked in New York. Okay. If we worked at 8 to 4, they got off at 4. They caught happy hour and they were there until 4 o'clock in the morning. They would get off at 12 o'clock they get off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they would go to breakfast at the bar. And a lot of them died as very young men because their lives didn't allow them to open and be fresh and renewed. They couldn't take it home to their families. And in many ways, we're very much like that. You can't take it home to your family. You have pastoral covering. You have areas where you cannot disclose because you're a social worker or you're in a social worker environment. And it's hard. When I first became a pastor, my wife would say, I'd be on the phone with him and get off. She'd go, who? What? What are you talking about? Who is it? I said, I can't tell you that. 28 years later, she doesn't even ask. It's like, bye. So it really, think about your situation, think about your family, think about your friends, think about the things that you carry as a result of the traumatic experiences that you have daily. Nobody's immune. But I want to teach you something. For God's sake, take a vacation. I know, I hear it, I'm sorry.
I'm just going to take a
No money, no time.
The first part.
Yeah, well, in most cases.
Somebody else needs me.
Somebody else needs
There
me.
you go.
What
Those
else?
are our excuses.
What else?
It's worse coming back from vacation.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, there you
That
go.
makes the work
There
pile up,
you
so
go.
it's worse.
Yeah. Those are excuses. Those are our
Nobody
So-
can do it but me.
Nobody can do it for me.
Excuses.
I'm every woman.
Yeah.
It's all
What
of
else?
it.
It's all of it. If I leave, nobody will ever do this again. If you don't get
Or
up
they'll
tomorrow-
fire me while I'm gone, right, Mark?
Right, there you go.
If I don't get up tomorrow morning, they'll find somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I arrived at my church like 6 months after our senior pastor did, and she's just a wealthy person. Well, later that year, she got married, and they had a 2 or 3 week honeymoon plan. During that time, 5 parishioners died. And when she came, she didn't come. We had enough coverage to stay there, but she said, I'm never going on vacation again.
I don't do Lazarus. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't do Lazarus. I can't bring them back. I can't.
You don't know what kind of power you have.
No.
Something that's true for me with death, I know that I had to do some self-care. I was having so many funerals at Mickey one after the next. And then there was one woman who passed away who was part of our Bible study. She was very supportive of me in my coming out process, and she was a friend. And I knew that she was with cancer. I knew her death was coming up. So I just said, because I come to the point where I wouldn't even grieve anymore.
Right.
So that's when I went to Puerto Rico. I was like, I know this is coming up, so I'm going to Puerto Rico with my friends. We're going to be on the beach. We're going to be dancing and acting crazy. But I knew that trip was about, I've got to prepare myself for what's coming. But I don't think in seminary we talk in pastoral care, but we didn't really deal that much with death and funerals and how and do we have opportunity to grieve?
Right.
Or even worship?
Right.
I come here because I don't have a position. I can sit in the back and enjoy and dance up and down the aisles and kick down chairs and everything else and just worship.
And that's, there's an irony in being taught pastoral care.
Right.
You realize how to take care of everyone else. Really.
They do.
Yep.
There's maybe 2 chapters in most of the books we get that will say self-care is important. And it's got 4 paragraphs.
2.
Nothing about how to do that. Nothing about why it's important. Nothing about the research that's been done. Really, we need to advocate strongly to look at self-care for the selfless. You're selfless. You're giving up time. You're giving up energy. You're giving up space in your life. Doesn't anyone care?
Who pastors the pastor?
Well, there you go.
There you go.
We pastor each other. We have the advantage of having 6 pastors
Yeah.
and a bishop. And then we have new pastors like Pastor Maria, who's coming from another situation, who's always been a part of what we do. Okay, but now she's physically here. And we pastor each other.
And
But in most cases, that's not the situation. You have a senior
I'm a
pastor.
solo.
Okay? And so
You can
what do
always
you
come
do
home.
when you're a solo pastor? You dedicate time and energy, self-care energy, to finding a group of like-minded people.
Great.
Creating relationships
Outside that church?
outside of that church. If you're the solo pastor,
You bet.
you don't want to be in that relationship with the congregant.
No.
That's a boundary issue, okay? So you want to be able to pick up the phone and say, Maria, look, I'm help me,
Right, that part.
okay? Help me. And do an intentional relationship covenant. We have relationship agreements. We have intentional covenants where we go, I haven't seen you at church for 6 months. What is going on? You know what? Whatever you're not telling me, I'm calling you again to ask you. Okay? And if I don't hear from you next week, which is our agreed upon time, at 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening, I'm calling you again.
No, you usually show up.
I
She just
learned
drive by.
I learned that from you. So, I again, maintain intentional relationships. Okay. Healthy intentional relationships. And know that no, the word N-O, is an entire paragraph. And it can be made into a book. You can say no.
Yes.
You can say no. And somebody will get over it sooner or later.
Yep.
But you need to be able to say no when it's
Right.
important. Okay? So, as we close out, I would like for you to get comfortable in your seats.
I'll stay here to sit, but I could
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think as a codependent,
I should have told you.
I've bought into the culture of, I'm supposed to be an example, I have to be able to be reliable and all those kind of things. And I think because I bought into that culture, I have to teach myself. The first thing when you said pastoral care, I think automatically my thought is pastoral care, caring for the people, not pastoral care for myself.
Right.
Exactly.
Or
And
pastors caring for
So,
pastors.
and I bought into that culture, and so changing that and changing the way I think about that, means that the people that have counted on me to be a certain way, I have to have the courage to stand in this is what I understand now, so that it's not this endless recycling of, I can't, I'm codependent with a capital C. Codependence work has never done it. That's my life thing. So if I keep that motto, then the work never is going to get done, because I'll just keep on taking another thing. And all technology has helped me do, sadly, is manage to do more in the time that I thought I was going to have time. So I just wanted to say that, because I think it's important for us to maybe re-teach a different type of culture where we respect ourselves enough to take care of ourselves and not give so much of ourselves, it becomes at the expense of ourselves, and we have nothing left just to even take care of ourselves.
Thank you. The other thing that came up as Pastor Terry was saying that is the fact that we don't make room for others when we don't offer them the opportunity to learn and do the work. So, legacy ministry is nice. It really is. I'm a legend in my own mind. But how can I help Mark become a legend in his own time? I'm heading to 70. I'm not going to do this till I'm 90 and drop dead in the pulpit. I want somebody to be able to pick up the things that I've worked on, bring new energy to it, and run like their life is on fire. I'm being selfish when I don't do that as a pastor. Okay? Really, I'm being selfish. They're probably ready to time us out.
Time is up. Okay.
How long?
Oh, it's too hot now.
Okay. Get how much done? I want you to do something.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so, thank you for your energy and time, but I want you to do something before we leave. I want you to get comfortable. And I need you to close your eyes. I need you to breathe. Inhale. Slowly, slowly exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Listen intently for your heartbeat. Intentionally release the things that you've brought into this room and the ways that you've seen yourself in the past. Replenish. Our church's motto for this year is fresh wind. Feel the wind. Feel the wind on your skin. And breathe. I want you to just wiggle your hands, your fingers. Let the stress out. I need you to release your tension. Breathe. Breathe in peace. Exhale pain. Breathe in hope. Exhale defeat. Breathe in your Creator. Exhale anything unlike the blessings of life given by God. And so it is. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.